Jen, do we have any more questions?
We sure do.
All
We've got
right.
another one here from Chris that says, are family offices interested in early stage SaaS AI tech?
Oh, this is a good one.
Oh,
The reason
good
is
one.
Becca totally, that's her jam, family offices. Becca, take it away.
Yeah, so I'll preface this. There are anywhere between 10 and 20,000 family offices supposedly in the world. That number is hard to really quantify because a lot of family offices don't necessarily make themselves fully visible for privacy and, for good reason. But it's a big opportunity. Do they invest in early stage AI and whatever else the company does? It depends. If you can find them, some of them do, but some of them don't, because if this is a multi-generational family office, chances are they may have a little more of a conservative investment management bias, meaning they're charged with preserving the capital, and venture and early stage direct investments don't always align with their approach to the asset allocation of the family wealth, but they can be a great resource and a great investor if you can find the right ones. I will say that if you're targeting sometimes maybe first or second generation family office might be a little more entrepreneurial or founder investor inclined. A lot of the wealth that has been created through technology in the last 20, 30 years, those I would say are a little more interested in some of these early venture and startup investments. If you're talking about a 1,000-year-old family from Europe that has a couple operating businesses, they may be less inclined.
Sure.
But it definitely is it's a great set to explore. But again, it's a little trickier to find them because they're not like a big wealth management firm or a big venture capital firm where they have a lot of public kind of information available.
Let's talk about family offices just as an alternative. I'll share the story, and I'm wondering, based on your experience, how common this is. I've only worked with, well, actually, me and Jen here, we worked for family office together. That's how we met. But if you're looking at a family office, I advised a founder once, and he had taken a company public. He was the chief operating officer, I think, and he ended up divesting and said, I want to move on. And then I found out that he actually is a member, or he's one of the family members of a very, very wealthy family office. And he had sort of left the family office because he wanted to do his own thing, stand on his own. And then he decided, and this was a lot of our conversation, do I want to go back to the family office? So I was doing a lot of executive coaching. And so he goes back to his family office and he says, all right, I want to put my mark on, our generational wealth. I want to do this. I want to be engaged, because they owned like dealerships and convenience stores and franchises, and they were totally set, right? And they wanted their kids to sit on the boards and just get the business because it's generational wealth transfer. But he comes in, and I can't remember what he ended up doing, but he said, yeah, I want a chunk of money and I want to put it into tech. I want to put it into speculative ventures. I think he ended up getting $40 million from his family office. I can't remember exactly because he just got too busy and he didn't need me anymore. And rightfully so. I was like, have a good life. Don't forget about us. But I think that if you can find those younger generation types, like you said, second or third generation, who now can make the decisions. They're coming into that transfer of wealth and they want to be engaged and they don't just want to run the portfolio. I think if you can find those individuals, you could probably pitch them and get favorable results. Am I just totally talking out of my ear here, or what do you think, Becca?
I think that's right. I think, though, you have to bear in mind that they're likely getting pitched from a lot of people. So,
Yeah.
because of that. So I think it helps to do your research and be prepared, all the things that we've been talking about, but also make it easy to understand why does it align with the operating businesses, or is it a complete departure? Is it going, to your point, is it going to give that next gen family member something of his or her own because it's so different from the other businesses that the family has owned? So you sort of have to choose the angle and figure out what might resonate with that particular individual. But I think it's definitely worth exploring, but just be mindful that they're probably getting hit by others.
Let me present to you a scenario and you tell me what your experience has been. I saw the comment just happen and says that family offices seem to be wanting to diversify and get into tech. And I would say that was true up until about 2022. Yeah. So what happens, you have to understand. So let's break down what a family office is so you understand. Let's put yourself in the shoes, family office. Family office is typically some matriarch, patriarch, somebody in the family strikes it rich and they're doing really well. And then they decide, I want to pass my wealth on next generation, plus my business. I don't just want to exit. I actually want to keep this going. So there are a whole bunch of different tax advantages and benefits. And I work with senior family trusts, which are basically family offices doing different things. They go out and buy banks and they do all these things and they work in the top 1% like some of the big guns do, right? And what happens is they need to come up with strategy. So they all need an investment thesis. And sometimes they tell their kids, all of you get a chunk of money, go out and figure things out, et cetera. And so they're looking at the market up until 2021, all these crazy IPOs happening. And the family office are thinking, should we have been investing in tech up to this point in time? Because we missed out on Airbnb. We could have got in on those. And the kids are saying, oh, this great Snapchat is wonderful. I'm using X and like Facebook all the way back in the day. But then family offices have to make money. So then if you follow the money from 2022 onward, if you were in startups, you lost. Like you were down 40% at minimum. But if you were in the public markets like the NASDAQ, just at a sheer, hey, this is where we're going to park our money, you would have been up 40%, right? And so family offices are going to say, well, why are we going to invest in tech? Well, we could just park our money into some big basket of funds out there for the time being until they start to see tech give these outsized returns again. Then they'll start to diversify. That's my experience how family offices operate. What about you, Becca?
Yeah, that's in line with my experience as well. And that goes back to just the conservative approach. Usually the people that are managing the wealth within the family office, because there are other departments like the estate planning and the accounting and things like philanthropy, but the people that are actually doing the asset allocation, they're going to be more conservative with that timing. They're not going to jump on certain things that, the rest of kind of the market participants might be perceived as doing. So, and a lot of them, and the other thing is you can just ask, if you have a connection to a family office or a family member of one of these high net worth families, you can just ask the question, if you have a relationship, does the family invest in direct investments or do early stage investments? They'll tell you, because that's, they're not going to beat around the bush, which is actually refreshing, because sometimes you go to people who you think are investors and they're not, and that's a waste of your time. So you can just ask them outright, is that part of the portfolio? Is there an allocation to doing direct investments in early stage companies? And if there is, they probably have a program where you either can pitch to an investment committee, or maybe there's a subgroup that you can, share information. But it sort of all depends. There's no one size fits all with these family offices. But I think that that's just it. They're generally going to be a little more conservative. Now, they do have performance sort of goals and requirements. And so the portfolio as a whole has to be able to support those goals. And venture, when done well, obviously can produce some pretty extraordinary returns. But a lot of the family office, if they want exposure to that asset class, they may prefer to go with a venture fund, because then they're diversifying the deals instead of a direct investment into one early stage company.
Now, I have seen family offices participate in roll-ups. So they'll say, we have an investment thesis in this type of industry, so let's go acquire or invest in a portfolio of companies that will then support that, or they'll roll it all up and say, we're going to take this company public, or things along those lines. So again, they're all over the place. And that's the good thing about family offices, and that's the infuriating part of family offices, is their investment theses are all over the map. And so you just have to do your research and find out and do your networking. So that's great. How do you normally meet your family offices, Becca?
A mix of just colleagues from my time in finance and people I've met along the way, operators I know who have had liquidity events. It's just one of those organic things that has evolved over the years. And I think if you think about that for any type of network or community you're trying to kind of establish yourself within, just recognize that, again, like those investors, they kind of are everywhere. They just don't all have labels above their heads.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they did with a QR code on how to apply. So let's do that.